as somebody who's built multiple, I mean, six different multi-million-dollar businesses, you've had two exits. What is it that you're seeing right now with entrepreneurs, with businesses that's changing with AI and everything that's happening?
The lie that we've been told is that education is the most important thing that you can do as an entrepreneur. And it used to be true, right? It was like read, listen, watch, fill your brain with good stuff, and you're going to be successful. And the issue with that is we have trillion-dollar supercomputers who already have all the good stuff. So the repository of information, that box has been checked to a degree that's difficult to articulate. What entrepreneurs need to do, the muscle that they need to work, I think, is the implementation muscle. My experience with most of my peers is they're really good at learning. And that's now a superfluous endeavor. I hate to say it. If it's divorced from implementation and execution. So if you're spending 2 hours a day reading, listening, watching, make it an hour. And then the other hour has to be execute. Execute on what you're learning. Don't listen to this podcast unless you're going to take one thing and do it. It's the verb. Everybody's missing the verb. Implement, execute, experiment, insert your own preferred verb here. But if you don't take that and really begin to embody it, to habituate it, you're going to, by definition, be left behind. Because it doesn't matter what you're learning. AI is going to not only outlearn you, but it's going to equip anybody who wants to compete with you to basically show up with, a priori, all the information you spent the last 20 years gathering, they actually have at their fingertips in a way that's really accessible and very implementable. So what education used to be is now implementation and experimentation. That's the new entrepreneurial endeavor. Every single day, wake up and try something, deploy, push, publish, print, act, jump. You know what I mean? Like do something or you are excess to this endeavor.
Wow. It's such a shift and such a change, such a shift and such a change in the market right now. And I'm so excited to have you on here. We've got Kasim Aslam. He is the founder and CEO of Pareto Talent. And he has had six different multi-million-dollar businesses, two exits. We've been friends for a long time. He's hosted his own very successful podcast as well. And I'm so excited to have you on here to talk about all of the different things that are changing right now in the landscape, changing with AI, with talent, with bringing great people in. We're going to have an amazing podcast episode. We've jammed before on your podcast. I'm so excited to have you here on the Marketing Minds podcast. To kick things off, because we're going to dive deep into what you're seeing with AI, what you're seeing with talent, what you're seeing with global talent. But really kicking things off, what was the spark that you saw with your last business? I know you had a really successful exit. What was the spark that you saw that kind of turned into Pareto Talent, that turned into this real shift to having that global talent, but also AI-assisted executive assistants? What was that catalyst and that spark?
It's so funny how I can pretend I had a really successful exit. The truth is I was just so lucky. I had 50 to 60 unsolicited offers. I sold without realizing that I was just getting off of this planet that a meteor was about to hit. Like I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. And I knew that forced obsolescence was built into my business model because I could see where Google was going with Performance Max and all those things. But I didn't realize how soon it was going to happen. I sell my business with 200 clients. Flash forward, I forget what, 9 months later, the company that bought me had 130 of those clients left, and it continued to atrophy. And it was because of AI. AI gobbled up my industry. You didn't need an ad agency anymore, at least the way we were doing it. We weren't doing it the way y'all do it. You integrate the creative, the strategy, the nuts and bolts. Dude, we were just the technical optimization. Well, what did AI do? It did all 100% of the technical optimization. So everything that we built a business around was instantly commoditized. And it was such a gift to be able to watch on the other side. Because I cashed my check, I got my money, I got out. And it helped me realize was the whole world is obsessing over what AI can do. Look what AI can do. Great, fine, fantastic. And the thing that AI can do, you can no longer charge money for. So it opened my horizons and kind of opened my eyes to the fact that the profitable endeavor is the thing that AI can't do. Everything, which is a complete, again, talk about paradigm shifts. It's another paradigm shifts. If I hear one more idiot talk to me about scale, I want a business that scales. I won't do anything that scales. Well, great, fantastic. Do you know what scales? AI. Do you know what scales better than you will ever scale anything in the history of scalability is AI. If it scales, AI can do it. What we need to do now as entrepreneurs is we need to focus it on all of the things that AI can't do, all of the things that don't scale, which is the human initiative. So the whole world went in the direction of AI. I went staffing humans, which is the least scalable business in the world. And it's the most important one to have in an ecosystem like this, where every single business needs an AI enabled asset, or call it a figurehead, and the perfect person to do that in your industry, in your business, is your executive assistant. So we call them AI enabled EAs. We take these EAs. It takes 1,000 applicants to produce one EA. We train them on everything that you need to know: soft skills, hard skills, technical implementation, then of course AI tools, but not just AI tools. And the idea is they come into your business, they learn it as they shadow you, follow you, you assign them with tasks. And on a long enough timeline, they can start to say, like, instead of this here, a person doing this thing, AI can do this thing. Because AI will always be bottom up. It can't be top down. You can't get some McKinsey consultant with an Ivy League degree to come in and be like, Alric, you're going to use AI for this project and this project. Like, that's not the way that it works, right? It's the person on the assembly line wielding the wrench that's going to figure that out. And so that's what I want to do. I want to staff those people. I hope this didn't turn into too much of a sales pitch. You don't need my people to do this. What I will say, though, to entrepreneurs is empower your frontline employees, line your incentives so that it behooves them to begin using these AI-driven tools. Because these are nuclear weapons. And most businesses, and dude, I really mean this, I'm not being hyperbolic, I think 90% of businesses have misaligned incentives with their employees. If you think about just the hourly model, I'm going to pay you to do a job, and I'm going to pay you every hour you do that job. Great. Thanks, boss. I will never use this AI tool that's going to do what I can do times 1,000 because I'm getting paid by the hour. So doing things like aligning with outputs, or, and this is my favorite, is letting an employee know, like, hey, if you can replace yourself here, all that's going to happen is an ascension. You replace yourself doing this, and I'll ascend you to, instead of running that job, you run this project. And then once you replace yourself with the project, you run the department. And once you replace yourself with the department, you can run the company. And you know what I mean? Like, you can show someone a path where making themselves redundant doesn't result in their obsolescence. It results in their ascension. And that's uniquely suited to small business. Big businesses can't do that, but small businesses can. And it's actually why I think small business is going to own the AI revolution in so many ways, because all of the best innovation is going to come from the ground up. So I'm going to pause there, dude. I talked a lot, but I hope that was valuable.
Incredibly valuable. And we're going to dive deeper into some of the things that you're seeing right now with AI, some of the tools that are working the best, because you have a very unique perspective, because you're, seeing all these different clients that you're working with that are using the executive assistants that you help place. So I'm very curious, what some of the best workflows, AI tools, some of those things, some tactical. We love diving into the tactical, strategies and marketing strategies here on the podcast. But before we get into that, I think you touched on something really important that everybody, myself included, is asking right now: is how do you get your team to fully adopt AI? And you started diving into that, but let's say you're working with a team, or you were in charge of a team that is apprehensive about AI. How would you go about, like, what are the steps that you would take to roll out an AI first adoption on that team? What are some of the actionable steps you'd take?
Such a great question. Here's the truth: is we're struggling with this right now. So I can tell you everything that doesn't work before I can tell you everything that works. My experience has been it works better with new initiatives and new projects. So if you take a team that's already entrenched, like we build sprockets, and you come to the sprocket team and you say, hey, sprocket builders who've been building sprockets for 30 years, let's do this a different way. It doesn't even matter if we're talking AI, right? It's like, let's do this a different way. That's nothing but heartache, headache, difficulty, uphill battle, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying that problem can't be fixed, but let's put that on a shelf for just a moment. Where I've seen AI implementation really take off is in new initiatives. So if you're like, hey, I want to launch this new line, this new service, these new customers, I want to go start a podcast, start a YouTube channel. What's nice about that is what your team's going to do, and it works to your benefit, is they're going to do what all teams have done since the beginning of time: is no, we don't have time, we don't have the people, we don't have the resources, we don't have the whatever. And then now we actually have aligned incentives, going back to that incentive alignment. And so with these new initiatives, you get to show people the leverageable endeavor that is AI utilization. Because when you really break down the task, when you break down the project into tasks, you start to see, like, well, actually, we couldn't launch a YouTube channel pre-AI because that really is a big lift. But look at Alric's new, software that helps you identify scripts based off of your voice. And then, look at what vidIQ can do with titles. And then look at so like, you've got this plus this plus this plus this. bam, we're actually able to deploy this initiative. And if you can build new projects using AI tools, what your team naturally does, and this happens only 1,000 times out of 1,000, is they bring that back and they start to go, these two things are analogous. Like we were using Descript for transcription on our YouTube videos. We actually need transcription on the project management tool too. We could actually carry that over here. So you never want to come in and say, we're going to change everything you do using AI. Instead, you introduce new projects. You put people in a position of using AI on the new projects. And the reason it needs to be a new project is because you can't offer existential crises to employees. Because that's what AI is, and employers have to understand that. You're basically coming in and saying, hey, here's this thing that might be able to do what you do better. Do you want to try this? They're going to go, no, dude, I don't want to. So it's kind of exposure therapy. You show them on a new project, something that has nothing to do with their bread and butter. This is the way AI works. And then you put them in a position to begin incorporating that in what they do on a day-to-day basis. You have to have user adoption. You have to have employee buy-in. Because if you don't, again, it's a frontline endeavor. AI will always be bottom up. It can't be top down. It can't be top down until AI takes over literally the entire assembly line, in which case your business is gone because AI does that thing, start to finish. And so you need the people that are at the roots to begin deploying the AI tools as they are necessary. And in order to do that, they have to be introduced to AI in safe confines. So be really careful about what every business owner is doing right now, which is trying to rip the Band-Aid off and saying, we're using AI for everything, because it's not going to work. Instead, introduce AI using new projects in safe environments, and then make sure you have aligned incentives. Because if I'm, as an employee, if I know I'm going to lose my job the minute I make myself obsolete, well, then why would I ever make myself obsolete? And a lot of businesses are structured in that way. I mean, dude, if you're a call center, if you're Quicken Loans, if you're just where, a place that treats people like commodities, you're going to have a really hard time getting your employees on board. AI becomes kind of an outside initiative. That's, again, going back to where I'm so optimistic and bullish about small, nimble businesses. Because we're going to be able to lift so much with so little. We're going to see literal billion-dollar businesses with 2, 3, 4 employees. And that's when that's why I named my company Pareto Talent. It's the Pareto distribution. 20% of your input results in 80% of your output. Only that scale is going to be massively more disparate. It's going to be a fraction of 1% results in thousands of percentage points more than we ever thought possible, because AI is such a massively potent nuclear weapon.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to dive more into AI, some of the different tools, some of the things that you're seeing. Also diving a little bit more philosophical on, where marketing is going with AI. What's the future of the industry? You've always been somebody that has this forward looking view. And I think back to a talk that you gave a few years ago. So I'll bring that up in a second. But before we get into that, let's actually take a step on the side here where you're talking about the human talent. And, of course, one of the things that you're doing is really helping empower and bring in that global talent. What are some of the benefits? We talked about the benefits of AI, and we'll dive deeper into that in a second. But what are some of the benefits of having global talent as some of those people, especially executive assistants, but just in general, what are some of the benefits of adding global talent into your team?
I'm going to get canceled, Alric. So let's play this game together and we'll see how far I can go. In Trump's America, how many incendiary things I can say. I'll just preface with, I love this country dearly and deeply. I'm related to Thomas Jefferson, which is a surprise given my name. We won, dude. We won. Here's what I mean by that. It is so freaking easy to be an entrepreneur here. There's no there's no real existential risk. I know entrepreneurs take risks. And if you think about it on an anthropological scale, you can do anything in the United States. And if you fail, you're not going to go hungry. And that's massive. It's massive to consider. Here's what that means, though. For small employers, we do not have access to this same talent pool that the rest of the world does. Because if you're a really bright human, if you're an employee that really, really, really cares about their career, you want to do a couple of things. You want to work for Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, right? Like a great big corporation with fancy conference rooms and $12 croissants and cachet and, a great title, phenomenal benefits, phenomenal salaries. Or maybe you want to work for a startup that's offering you like amazing stock options so you can go be a billionaire yourself at some point. Or you want to be a small business owner yourself. Or maybe other options exist on the periphery, but that's pretty much it. For the rest of us, hiring domestically is hard because we're not an aspirational employer. No kid wakes up thinking, I want to go work for Kasim. You know what I mean? Even if I could match the salary of Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, which I can't, I can't match the benefit package. I literally, they're inaccessible to me. I can't buy the healthcare that they can buy because I don't have the thousands of employees that they have. I can't match what, one would consider to be the social fodder, right? And so I'm left with, quote unquote, what's left. Now, there's nothing wrong with the people that are left. They're just not the people that prioritize career. These are, traditional 9-to-5ers. And if you've had the difficulty that I've had domestically, when I hire, the first words out of people's mouths are things like, what's my title? How much PTO do you have? Where that's not my job description. It becomes very combative, and we're not the priority in most people's lives. So there's a bunch of things that are cancelable there, and people can get mad if they want to. Flash to the rest of the world, especially emerging nations. And when I say emerging nations, I'm trying not to say third world countries because apparently that's not PC, but you think like Latin America, North Africa, Eastern Europe, all of Asia. People do not have the opportunities we have here. Imagine if you're an employer and you've been struggling with domestic labor, imagine for a moment the feeling of somebody being grateful to work for you. Now, Alric, because of where you're positioned hierarchically, like you're nerd famous, everybody likes you, you're a rocket ship to the moon, you probably don't have quite the same issue that most employers have because you are an aspirational employer, but not everybody is. If you're not an aspirational employer, meaning people aren't dying, oh, dude, I wish I could get in with that outreach. Like that would be amazing. I'd learn a lot. I'd grow my network. I'd whatever. When you go to, let's go to Bogota, Colombia. The primary industry in Bogota, Colombia is a call center. I worked at a call center as a kid. I worked for MCI selling long distance. It was the modern day coal mine. Worst job I've ever had in my entire life. Fluorescent lights, 10-hour days, soul sucking, abysmal quality of life. Take somebody out of that. Let them work on a semi-flexible schedule, which doesn't mean anything other than I'm not going to make you punch in and punch out on the second. And if your kid needs to go to the dentist, go ahead and take them, right? Semi-flexible schedule, work from home, get paid more than you make domestically, do meaningful work. You take somebody in an emerging nation and you give them that, and dude, you that's a quality of life that they've never been exposed to before. And as an entrepreneur, you start to see the impacts that you're having. And again, I actually think those impacts, they ripple. Like, let a single mom stay home with their kids. She's still working, but she's actually there, and the impact that has on people's lives. And I'm not being touchy-feely. I'm letting you know, imagine how she feels about you, your business, the client, the job, compared to someone who's like, yeah, I could work there or I don't have to because I live in this beautiful country that's created so many opportunities for me that it really doesn't matter. And here's the other thing is there's brain drain here. All the smartest people go in the directions that we've already discussed. You can't tell me, unless you're a violently racist human, that the rest of the world doesn't produce equally intelligent humans on a per capita basis, right? Like, let's say there's 20% of any population is above the line from an IQ perspective, which I think IQ is an aggregate average. So it would have to be 49% would be above average, but we won't get clinical with it. That same percentage is true in every single country, and yet most countries don't have the opportunities we have. So to give you an example, my personal CFO, who manages my personal finances, as well as every business that I own, he's a college professor in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He's one of the smartest financial minds I've ever been exposed to. He has a master's degree in economics or finance or whatever it is. And what I pay him is less than I would pay a bookkeeper in the United States. But I'm paying him, I don't know what, 2x what he'd make domestically. So the financial arbitrage there is insane. It's insane. So I get access to the type of person that here would command $500,000 and stock options and 40 days PTO and benefit packages and also wouldn't want to work with me because he can go work for Best Buy or Target or Amazon or whatever.
Wow.
It's unfair when you go internationally, dude. And that's the problem is US employers, they only take international labor and they throw them garbage work. So I'll have people like, oh yeah, I tried to outsource. It didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, what did you try to outsource? I tried to hire somebody to make 500 cold calls a day. And would you believe it? After 2 weeks, they burnt out. And I'm like, you don't say. What if you took your high-level positions, dude, like my client managers, my strategists, my specialists at Google at Solutions 8, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. We were the best in the world. I really believe that strongly with everything inside of me. Some of my best employees were fresh out of India, a place where most US employers won't give real work to. My #1 strategist was a young man named Ankar. Ankar managed my biggest client, who paid us $54,000 a month. They were a publicly traded supplement company. They paid us $54,000 a month. And Ankar got 9 times what a local specialist got in India. 9 times. Imagine making 9 times what your peers make. And even so, I'm paying this kid basically 10x what any Google specialist makes in India. But he's managing this client that, like, he becomes a nit on the balance sheet. That's the Pareto distribution. 20% of your employees are going to do 80% of your work, but you can index towards that 20%. And so there's no reason not to go and try to find these exceptional human beings. And they're everywhere, man. That's the thing that blows my mind. You don't have to hire from me. You can find them. The rest of the globe, and it's sad, it almost sounds predatory. The rest of the globe doesn't have access to our opportunities. And dude, so you can go to places and you can find these people that are like literally, sadly, starving for opportunity. And when you become that for them, you're a lifeline. And they'll run through walls, and you get to change their life and they get to change yours. It's such a symbiotic relationship. Anyway, I hope that didn't get too preachy, but that's my passion, dude. Like these people, I mean, in as much as anybody deserves anything, they deserve solid employment opportunities. And you as a small entrepreneur, I imagine most of your listeners are small businesses. You've never seen employees like this, ever. You've never seen people care so much, ever. You just have to give them the chance. And there are, cultural nuances and language barriers and things that you have to get over. But if you're willing to do the work to get over those humps, when I sold Solutions 8, I had almost 100 employees. 6 of them were in the US. The rest were in the rest of the world. I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15%. Like the levels of efficiency that you're able to achieve using international talent, it's unparalleled.
Wow. And you could definitely, it makes so much sense when you're mapping it all out and you're describing the way that you can really take and utilize that talent and those people that are out there that are looking for opportunities. It's an amazing exchange. We've got opportunities here, and there's incredible people that are looking for opportunities like that can earn many, many times what their peers would earn in their local areas. That makes a lot of sense. And so kind of shifting back to AI, I think is a good way to dive into here. So how do you empower them? What are some of the tools that you're giving? Because if that's the 20%, right, that's going to yield 80% of the results, you could probably get another 20% to 80% distribution by adding AI to the mix as well.
It gets fractal for sure.
Yeah, it gets fractal. You can compound this. What does that look like? And what are some of the AI tools? And also, let's get a little tactical with this too. For anybody who's watching or listening, what are the things that you've discovered really empower people like that with what they're doing?
So I'm going to start to use words that I don't know how many listeners get turned off by this. It's funny. I don't believe in teaching the individual AI tools. I think end up being, it's an exercise in climbing a muddy hill because they're going to change all the time. So if I tell you we're going to use Descript for video editing, well, why? Because then Adobe's going to come up with that thing and it's going to be better. And then Opus is going to come. So what I'd rather do is I like to train the way they think. If you want to train people to think in AI terms, the very first thing they need to learn are relational databases, which go learn Airtable, Grist, dude, go learn Google Sheets. Learn how is it that I capture and catalog data? And what is data? Right? Because you throw that term, the data, the money's in the data. Everybody has data. Well, what does that really mean? And so the example I gave to you pre-roll, if I'm an executive assistant and I'm talking to Alric and I'm booking your travel, I happen to know that you like a window seat on short flights and you like aisle seats on long flights. And I know that you're mildly gluten intolerant, but it doesn't matter when we're in Europe because they use different GMOs than we use. And I know what your favorite TV shows are, and I know what your contact lens prescription is, and I know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a trillion ways to catalog that information. You can go read Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain if you want to dive down the rabbit hole. The way I think that information should be cataloged is in a database. Because the second it's in the database, and a database is what? An X and a Y axis. And if you want to get real fancy, a relational database is a Z axis, and you can turn and you look at it in different directions. But you don't even need to know all that shit. Just go learn how to capture information in a database. Because as soon as it's in the database, every field becomes its own catalyst. And now you get to say to AI, when this changes or updates, or if this value is higher than that value, or whatever, anything you can do in any database field, you can trigger an infinite number of functions, features, integrations, and you've just weaponized your data and you've prepared yourself for what's coming. Because AI right now, is to say it's in its infancy is laughable, right? Like I just read something like 90% of most Americans still haven't done anything with AI. They haven't even played with ChatGPT. And so I don't think the endeavor at the moment is learning how to use AI. If you really think about AI if we're defining terms, AI you don't need to learn how to use it, right? If it's good, it works without you having to learn. So to put that into simpler terms, our children won't have to learn to type. Why would they? They actually probably won't even need to sit behind a screen. Why would they? The AI is doing all the nuts and bolts behind the scenes stuff. So it's not about learning the tools, it's about changing your paradigm and changing the way you think. And the first thing we have to do is get really good at data capture. Once we're really good at data capture, now it's just having the correct process mind. And a process mind says, if this, then that, except when. If this, then that, except when. If this, then that, except when. It's just classic coding. If you can do those things, data capture, process. And then this is where I'm going to say something that pisses all the AI bros off. Who gives a shit what tool you're using? If it works, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I use Claude because of this. Well, I only use Perplexity because I only use, who cares? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, change the name. Who cares? It works, right? Like, you have the data capture, you have the if this, then that. And now it's like, oh, I'm an Android user, I'm an Apple user. I don't care. It works. End to end, it works. And that's the way I think you want your people thinking. You want people thinking solution agnostic, and you want people thinking on granular scales. AI is not a field of grass. AI is the utilization of every blade of grass being a different tool, perfect for its specific implementation and context and where it sits on the field. So if you think AI is just this, oh, I'm just going to go put grass in the backyard, you're wrong. AI is using the right tool in the right space, and then trusting that if you've built out your ecosystem properly, it self-iterates, which blows my mind, dude. AI can and will do. So I don't think people need to learn AI tools, because the tool, I mean, it's a car that drives itself. It's like asking, how do you teach people to drive a self-driving car? You don't. You teach them how to buckle their seatbelt. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to learn how to drive the self-driving car. It drives itself. Now we need to change the way we think about cars, travel, transit, planning. So how was that for an answer? Was that too petulant?
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. And honestly, it goes right into my next question here, which is the future of marketing and AI. Because I'll go back to 4 years ago, 2021, we were both speaking at Steve Sims' speakeasy event.
I remember that, dude.
Right here in Austin.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I remember at that event, you got up and you could tell a story or whatever, but you got up, and instead of saying the speech that you had, you just said, I'm scrapping this and I'm just going to talk about where marketing is going. And you said a lot of things that honestly came true, were scarily accurate, because that was even a year before the big AI even came onto the scene. And then, maybe a couple years before the big AI boom. And a lot of what you talked about came true, talking about marketing evolving. You were talking about Google adding in Performance Max, some of these different things, right? Where things are going. So feel free to recap as much of that as you want, but then let's pick up where you left off. And I'm curious what you see is happening right now.
Well, for the listener's sake, I'll tell them what really happened. Steve Sims is a prick, and he invited me to the speakeasy, which he never tells anybody who the speakers are. And then on the stage comes Ulrich Heck, and he gives the best PPC talk anybody's ever given. And I'm like, well, my talk is, 2 grades lower than that, so I have to change what it is I'm talking about. But I appreciate you leaving that part out for me, Ulrich. That was kind of you. Marketing as we know it is no longer a value-driven initiative. Barry Belcher said this to me. He goes, marketing's not an industry. Marketing is a role the way that a housekeeper is a role at a hotel. It's just one thing that needs to be done inside of a business. And it was the internet, the advent of the internet, that turned marketing into a whole industry. Because it became overwhelming because there's so much to be sewn together. And is he going a little farther? Yeah, I think he is. And I think this is the death of the generalist agency. It would have to be. If you don't specialize in a channel, specialize in an industry, there's no need for you. It's interesting. It's kind of one of those questions that, like, why do you exist? I think we're already seeing SaaSmageddon. Private equity firms are unloading SaaS companies as fast as they can quietly. So again, certain SaaS products are going to survive. I think tech enablement SaaS products, AI enablement SaaS products are going to be just fine. And then a lot of these little, bits and bots, they're going to go by the wayside. I think there's this classic saying, in a gold rush, sell shovels. I think in a post-AI world, it's actually in a gold rush, sell digging. And if you can, sell gold. Here's what I mean by that. Used to be, you could go to a dentist and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Dentist, can I run your ads? I'll charge you $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever. Now, I think what marketers need to do is they say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Dentist, I know a patient's LTV is $7,500. I'll charge you $1,500 per patient. And then the dentist goes, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because no dentist has ever woken up in the middle of the night thinking, I want ads. What they want are patience. Now, depending on who you are and how premier you are, you may or may not have to do that. But especially if you're just getting started out, if you're small, if you're in the incubator mode, unless you're proven, I think that marketing needs to become performance-based, because marketing for the sake of itself is no longer valuable the way that it was. There was a time where people paid. Dude, I had clients that hired us because they're like, we just want ads running because our board wants ads running. Just run the ads. And, and it was like, all right, that's easy to do. Check that box. We're done. So I think that marketers are finally being called to the table because for the first time ever, there's automated mechanisms that can do most of what we were doing. And this is why you're so interesting to me, Albert, because I remember actually criticizing your business model in my head. And I remember thinking, I'm like, that's not scalable. And then turn around and all the shit that's scalable is gone. And then the stuff that you're doing is still like massively, massively valuable. So if you're curious, if you're listening to this and you're curious as to whether or not you're on the wrong side of the scalability fulcrum, that's the question. That's the question. Does what I do scale? If so, assume a computer can do it. And that's not hard to fight against. The way to protect yourself is to re-inject the human endeavor. Man, the other day I called a company, a relatively large company, and a real life human being answered the phone, and I was floored. I was floored, and I was delighted, and I was appreciative, and it was a really solid experience for me to have. And that's not a hard thing to do. It's not scalable, but I think we need to start looking in those directions. Like as marketers, start looking at what doesn't scale. I think scale is bad. Scale is a bad word at this point because scale doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It means it's not going to be profitable for you. So start looking at the things that don't scale and begin injecting those in the business. And I think that's where, the real profit potential is found in the inefficiencies, not in the efficiency. That's why this whole obsession about what AI can do, well, great. Show me all the things that you can no longer charge money for. Instead, go focus on the things that AI can't do, and then allow yourself to be enabled and equipped by the things that AI can do.
Really, really good point. Really good point. I know we could continue talking forever on this, on this topic, and it's always so fascinating listening to everything that you share. And in a second, I know you have some final golden nuggets, maybe some final outlook on some of this as well. But before we dive into that, where can people go to, find Pareto talent, to, learn more about everything that you're doing? Where do you want to send people?
Yeah, I got, go to kasim.me, Kasim.me, all my socials, all my businesses. I shoot a YouTube video every day. Would love to come hang out, be friends. Let me know what I can do better. And if you want to hire one of my EAs, I'd love to help you.
Awesome. Definitely go check that out. We'll put all the links down there below, and make sure that you are subscribed to the Marketing Minds podcast, wherever you're watching this, whether it's on YouTube, turn on notifications, or if it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, check out all the links down below. And Kasim, this has been fantastic. Always so insightful, always so valuable. What are some final words of wisdom or golden nuggets you want to leave everybody with here at the end of the podcast?
I think everybody should be doing exactly what you're doing right now. Alric's one of my favorite examples because Alric, you started when you were 12. You were so far ahead of the curve, and that's a fact, right? You were 12 years old. You
started
I was
12 when I started my first YouTube channel. Yeah.
So one of the things that AI can't do is establish and build authority. And I know that there's arguments to that, but I don't believe them. I listen to humans, you listen to humans. I think most people born, I'll date myself a little bit, but if you were born before 2020, I think that you're gonna have a predisposition to authorities that resonate with you on an emotional level. And you don't need massive audiences. There's a thesis out there, I forget who coined it, but it's 1,000 true fans. I sold an 8-figure agency on the back of a YouTube channel that had less than 30,000 subscribers. Go out there and get 100 potent followers. Start a YouTube channel, a Facebook group, a Telegram thread, a school group, like what does not matter. And I actually think YouTube is the best place to go. It's the highest quality traffic. They're at the middle of the funnel. They're educated. The average time on site for YouTube is 20 minutes versus 90 seconds throughout the rest of the world or the rest of the internet. Start somewhere and build authority, because that might be all we have left at the end of the day. It's like, all right, everything's solved for us. So now we just need a couple of authorities that tell us, am I taking the red pill or the blue pill? So if you don't know what to do, if you're overwhelmed, start a YouTube channel, start building some authority, because I think that's one of the best things to do to make sure that you stay relevant as the waves continue to pass over us and we don't necessarily know what's happening next.
I love it. Of course, I completely agree. YouTube is the way to go. And I know, it's such an interesting perspective that you always bring to everything. So thank you so much again for hopping on here, Kasim. Really appreciate it. And love diving into all your insights.
Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Thank you.